What's up, YouTube? Today I just kind of wanted to make a video talking about some ideas that I've been thinking of and kind of what I want out of the channel and kind of what I'm hoping for, and kind of asking you for help for something, actually. And the one thing that I would like to have with this channel is actually something like a dialogue between me and the viewers. And yeah, I've noticed, I've asked a bunch of people that I know in real life, do you want to come on the podcast? Some of them said yes. I got a few people that are, eventually we're going to set up a time to have a podcast. But I realize for a lot of people, kind of putting yourself publicly on the internet for everyone to criticize doesn't seem like something they wish to engage in, and totally understandable. And so what I want to do somehow is find a way to engage in a dialogue with you. And so I'm not exactly sure how to do that. And so I wanted to create a Discord channel. Turns out to get a Discord channel that's even remotely functional, you have to pay for it. So, I'm hoping that comes later, but right now I haven't done that. So I decided to create a Twitter, and I'll leave a link in the description below, and then maybe we can discuss there. But yeah, what I also want to emphasize here and why I want a dialogue is that I'm not trying to claim that I know all this stuff. And so for a lot of this, for me, the desire for the YouTube channel is actually to help me understand stuff by talking to you. And so what I would say, I have a rough idea of certain ideas of things, and I've seen certain glimpses of certain things that I want to talk about. But what I would say is it's something like I want to move beyond this materialist worldview. And so there's materialism. It's an interesting, relation that materialism means two different things in our society, and I think they're actually related. But it's like materialist in the sense of science, which says, all of matter is made up of atoms, so you're made up of atoms, and that's the best way to understand you, is you're just a collection of atoms, and the laws of physics determine you, and so there's nothing unique and special about you. And also this idea of materialism in this like consumerist, hyper-capitalist society of somehow the thing that will set you free and make you happy and bring you joy in the world is material products. And it's something like this desire to look for happiness and fulfillment in the material world. And what I have come to realize, in my belief, is that that's not true. There's nothing about that that's true. You're not just made up of atoms. And the key to fulfillment and happiness and being engaged in the world is not through material objects. And it's something, so what does that mean then? Is that it's something in spirituality. And I don't even know the correct term. It's like something like religion or mindfulness or spirituality or something that is beyond just this materialist way to look at the world. And so I've been kind of thinking about this for a few years, but a few years is still not much, right? And so, when it comes to the Bible, for example, I've read maybe 10% of the Bible. And so I want to talk to people that come to understand this. And what I want to say is, and a lot of people also say when I ask them to come on a podcast is something like, I don't know if I'm the right person. I don't know if I'm qualified. And I think that actually also stems from this materialist worldview of you're just made up of atoms, so you don't matter. And what I want to say is you do matter. Everybody matters. And so if you're coming at this from, I'm skeptical of this whole spirituality thing, I believe in materialism, and I don't, even if you just hate religion and you hate the idea of spirituality and you hate mindfulness and you hate this whole thing, that I still want to talk to you. I still want your voice. I still want to understand, why do you believe that? And maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong and you're right. And so then but the only way we figure that out, in my opinion, is through dialogue. Like, we need to talk to each other somehow. And so what I want to create is something where dialogue can happen. And then, so another example out of this. So why I want to say materialism is wrong is just look at the world that, like, we're in a mental health crisis, and like depression and anxiety are through the roof. And some people will say, like, oh, I don't think depression's real or anxiety's not real, or it's kind of, now that we have labels for these things, people always felt this way, but now that we have labels for it, the numbers are kind of inflated, and that's like a valid point. But then you can look at suicide. Suicides are through the roof. And it's like that, it's hard to argue out of that. Like suicide is not just we've come up with a new label for a concept. That is someone who has felt existence itself is so insufferable that they would rather end it than continue to engage in it. And it's like, why? What is going on there? And there's like a disconnect between the meaning of your life and life itself. And what I want to say is that somehow the answer to there is an answer to this. There's a way out of this. And there's a way to and I think that the wisdom that will set us free in some sense is contained in these old ancient traditions and this old religious way of thinking. And it's not just Christianity or Islam. Also, like Buddhism has this idea with mindfulness. People are having this experience with psychedelics. And so there's something beyond just the material world. There's something about me and who am I and what is my purpose in this and what is my meaning in this. And I think that those are not empty questions. There's something real about it. And what I would say is, if your belief system leads to suicide, like, I want to say that belief system is wrong. And it's not wrong in a way of science, but then this is another example of this materialist worldview shaping your idea. Like, I can't think of a better definition of wrong than a belief system is wrong if it leads you to suicide, right? It's like, okay, that's wrong in the sense that, like, let's try to solve that. Like, that's not like, oh, that sounds fantastic. Let's keep that the way it is. Society's functioning perfectly. It's like, no, something's up. And so what I want to emphasize is I'm quite new into this. I've started to piece some bits together. I feel like I'm actually, I spent about 5 years in this nihilistic kind of hellhole of nothing matters and nothing's meaningful and I don't matter and everything's meaningless. And I kind of got myself out of that hole at least and on a pathway to try to understand this. But I'm on that pathway. I'm in no way trying to claim that I, somehow solve the answers to the universe. And I think if someone is telling you, hey, I've figured out all the answers, like, they're probably scamming you in some way, whether they know it or not, right? I mean, no one knows that. And so then what do you do? And what I would say is what we do is we have to work together. And that's like the whole idea behind unity is we have to come together to solve this. And so the way that I personally come to understand things best is through dialogue, through communication. And so that is part of the goal of the podcast. And, I have multiple people lined up to come on the podcast. It's more just me finding the time to do it between my PhD, which is a lot of work, and everything else. But then I have encountered a lot of people that don't want to come on the podcast, which is completely understandable. So I want to create a new way to engage in dialogue with you. And let's try to figure this out together. Let's try to solve this problem together. And this affects everyone. And so you are qualified to do this. So I want to, with the best of my ability, fight against the idea that you are not qualified to come on the podcast. You're not qualified to talk about these ideas because you're not, knowledgeable enough. But it's like, okay, well, the people that are knowledgeable enough that are telling us how to live our lives is yielding this mayhem, yielding this mental health crisis that we're in, yielding a society that's totally just, it seems confused and unsure of itself and just chaotic. And so it's like, okay, then if the qualified people are yielding this kind of chaotic society, then maybe that notion is not the best way to think about it. And what I want to say is that you are qualified, and I need your help. And so what I'm hoping for is I'm going to try this Twitter thing. I don't know if Twitter's the best medium. I've basically only heard bad things about it. But then if you have other ideas of how we can engage in it, I'm thinking about maybe hosting a Q&A so that people can kind of ask me questions and I can answer them. But I want to try to engage in a dialogue about this because I am in the process of trying to come to understand this stuff. And I maybe have been thinking about it for a couple of years, but a couple of years is nothing in the grand scheme of things. And so I want your help so that I can understand your point of view. And maybe you have some insights that I don't, or maybe you're asking me for help, or maybe you have a similar idea as me and you want to work through it together. It's like there's kind of these three levels of either I know something you don't, you know something I don't, or we're trying to figure something out together, right? And it's all three of those I'm interested in speaking with, you know. Yeah, I think I probably kind of rambled enough. I hope that makes sense. If you have any ideas on how maybe we can engage in a dialogue better, maybe a blog is the right answer, maybe it's Twitter, TikTok, I don't know. I have no idea. I'm, even though I'm a physicist, I'm kind of a boomer when it comes to social media for sure. You know, I know YouTube, and that's about it, but, you know, so if you have any ideas, please let me know in the comments down below. And, yeah, I got some other videos coming out, some ideas that I have, but, yeah, I want to engage in this dialogue in some way, and so let me know. Let me know how would be best to allow you to actually have a conversation with me, and then we can kind of come to understand this stuff together. All right, and I think that's it. All right, bye.